Hello, you're hearing the voice of Darius West. I am conducting this presentation for Dr. Chavez and Dr. Knapp's ENVS615 final group project. Today, I'll be going over how to use urban agriculture to adapt to food insecurity. Now, as urban centers continue to grow, urban agriculture is re-emerging as a necessary ability for maintaining food security in communities all over the world. The reports used in this assessment detail the needs of food insecure populations and the impacts that household and community yields of food have proven to have on individuals and communities. From peer-reviewed research articles, we extract the foundational needs of households when they seek to grow food. We then develop steps as to how municipalities can support this activity. The ultimate goal here is to help the reliant become resilient. Food security is important in households all over the world. A lack of food security can result in malnutrition and other diet-related diseases like obesity, diabetes, hypertension, etc. As we will see, there are different approaches to food security in the global south than in the global north, and we'll see two different ways that this is approached. One with handouts and the other with education and assistance. This assessment focuses on the latter and how education and the right support mechanisms can improve health and well-being. Just to get off, if you look to the right, food security, you want to define that. Now, food security is defined as when all people at all times have access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food to maintain a healthy and active lifestyle, as defined by the World Health Organization. Okay, so that's the what. Now, who is affected by food insecurity? This map reveals by state which states have the highest food insecurity. Now, as we see, Arkansas and Mississippi are leading with over 20% food insecurity, and the rest of the South is tailing along at just over an average of over 16%. This could be because of different reasons, but if we look at USDA data from food security survey that's done annually, we find that the top 3 communities influenced by food insecurity are: number 1, the poor, Black communities, as well as Latino communities. And what makes households food insecure? Now, usually it's a lack of resources, essentially, and this could be limited or lack of money, limited or lack of access to land, and limited or lack of access to the welfare alternatives that are presented and provided in places like America. Now, we want to discuss a little bit of the hindrances to urban gardening, because this will help us to figure out how municipalities can support urban agriculturists and urban gardeners. We also found that these hindrances are not specific to any one region, even though per situation, one can be of greater hindrance than the other. To start off, space. This picture taken from Philadelphia shows the row house architectural style, which is very popular on the East Coast and is becoming increasingly popular with urbanization, even in places like Denver. And it shows that there's not a lot of green. There's not a lot of space in general. This shows just the front of actually different places in Washington, D.C., and it shows that this is the same. Now, the next hindrance is the lack of knowledge. And I'm going to read this quote and then connect it back to how this plays into knowledge. Okay, so this says, "The bunny who thinks, 'I don't like this garden,' is experiencing a thought and not a garden." So for a second, the reason why I was so touched by this quote is because I replaced the term bunny with person, or especially child. And when having experienced teaching children in this type of atmosphere, and having heard something like this or to this effect, and seeing the reaction of children after they actually experience and start gaining knowledge of the environment, it reveals that without experiencing something like a garden, you will not have that affection for it. But once you do experience it, you will. And this all ties back to knowledge in that if you don't have this knowledge, it's going to be a hindrance. So if we give this knowledge to children now, when they get older and realize the value of it, they will actually have the resource, as in the knowledge, to utilize and reap what they sow. So the lack of knowledge is one of the major hindrances to urban gardening, and can be really fatal in places like the global south, where there are no safety nets provided by the government. The next one is not necessarily the lack of pests, but the lack of knowledge of how to eradicate pests. And the bunny is a example, or symbolizes that, but also our friend the raccoon, which some urban gardeners might go to battle with, as well as caterpillars and squirrels and things like that. The lack of access to land, water, or seed can also be detrimental to anyone trying to crop or plot anything on the urban scale. Now, with this in mind, we want to keep in mind that municipalities, when they take this information in, they need to understand creative ways to use space. They need to understand how to relay specific knowledge, which is specific to the area and the community, meaning the culture. Understand that in terms of pests, because pests come in different regions and things like that. And they also need to understand that none of this will be feasible without access to land, water, and seed. Keeping all of this in mind, they must also understand that all of these elements are interdependent, and focusing on one without the other can result in an error. Because space without knowledge, or access to land, water, seed without knowledge, will result in nil, or an error, failure, any of those things. Now, shifting our focus back to Gunnison Valley specifically, we want to focus on the Mountain Roots Food Project, as they are a shining example of organizations which make it their mission to focus on populations which don't have access to urban agriculture. Now, the Mountain Roots organization has established urban gardens in the Gunnison Valley, and offers education to students and adults on gardening and nutrition. In their own words, they recognize that building community food security starts with teaching a community how to meet its own needs. They focus on efforts that engage in key target groups. In the Gunnison Valley, this is the Hispanic community, Cora Indian populations, and the food insecure, which is often low income, and the food unaware, which can be many people. They have programs like the Access and Outreach Program, which works to build and revitalize the community by providing equitable access to nutritious, affordable food that is regionally based, sustainably produced, and culturally appropriate. They also have gardens, which seek to create a vibrant network of urban and community gardens, and they do this by converting underused public and private residential lots into organic growing spaces. Through their work, Mountain Roots strengthens community bonds, provides food, and creates recreational and therapeutic opportunities within a community. According to their 2014 annual report, Mountain Roots has served over 1,600 students and made over 19,000 square feet of gardening space available to families and individuals. all while making a point to highlight underserved individuals. In this annual report, Mountain Roots reported 33 underserved individuals within their gardening program. Only 33. We propose that added municipal and community support is necessary to increase this scale to ensure all the underserved populations are given access to urban agriculture in the Gunnison Valley. So now we're going to discuss different approaches towards food insecurity in the global north versus the global south. Now, in the United States, the welfare path is provided in many areas as a solution to food insecurity. A USDA report based off the National Food Security Survey concluded that 62% of food insecure households reported that they had participated in one or more of the 3 largest federal food and nutrition assistance programs. So put simply, 62% of food insecure households rely on government assistance to get by. Community and household yields of healthy food can be an alternative to the welfare paths laid out in the United States. But meanwhile, in the South, household propagation is seen as more of a priority, while in the North it is not, because of the safety nets which ensure short-term food supply. Now, in the global South, when there is no food assistance, what happens? It's more likely you see communities coming together to actually cultivate the land or cultivate the seed. Interestingly enough, in a study done in Kampala, Uganda, they found that 80% of the gardens in the community were tended to by women. This is similar in Lima, Peru, where males of the family, even young boys, go to work and women are left at home. And when this happens, they take it upon themselves to construct kitchen gardens that helps them save money and gives their family the nutrition that they need. We also see in the global South that these issues of food insecurity are approached more as a community, less as individuals. If we compare this to the global North, we see a lot of instances of individual households approaching things like food pantries and government programs for assistance. Just a small side note as to why we need alternatives to the welfare option. A timeless quote by Lao Tzu: "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." No more needs to be said about that. So as we move forward, in thinking like a municipality, to assist communities in positively shifting their habits, municipalities and community organizations must offer residents instructions on how to creatively and safely produce their crop. In addition, they must create accessible plots for the land lists. Creating yields is interdependent of all these elements. All these elements includes water, land, seed, and know-how. The mitigation potentials include a decrease in cases of preventable diseases due to improved healthy food intake, as well as a decrease in emissions from less consumption of imported produce, among other things. Overall, it is proven that access to urban agriculture can have significant influence on health and the well-being of communities. Increased participation in garden programs increases the amount of fruit and vegetable intake of residents. While this is impactful on all economic levels, it could have significant impacts on lifestyles in communities disproportionately affected by food insecurity and diet-related diseases. The best way to support these changes is through increased financial and community support for organizations and programs which make it their mission to secure access to urban agriculture for communities in need. Thank you for listening.